Greetings and welcome to Talk a Little, Learn a Lot, the American Society of Naval Engineers podcast. I am your host, Stephen Phillips. In this podcast, we talk a little and learn a lot about naval engineering while inspiring the next generation of STEM professionals. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Michael Briscoe, ASNE's Educator in Residence, to discuss the PEP Workforce Development Program hosting its national competition for 2026, commonly called PEP 26. Mike, thanks for joining me again on the podcast.
Thanks for having me again. We're really excited to share all the fun things that are going on with PEP and the importance of developing this future workforce.
So, for those who are unaware, please describe promoting electric propulsion, or PEP, the PEP Workforce Development, and the PEP 26 competition.
Sure thing. This is a program that's funded by the Office of Naval Research to develop more engineers with the talents that we need today. It's been extremely successful and growing very quickly. We started in PEP with PEP 2018, but that was really an industry demonstration. Then coming out of the pandemic, we've been having collegiate PEP since 2021. And it's really caught on like wildfire. We give schools $7,000 to get started with their build and to travel to the competition. The competitions have been at the Coast Guard yard in Baltimore and in the Occoquan, but most recently, really in the Hampton Roads area. It looks like we found a very good home there. We're supported by the Combatant Craft Division on the water. The ASNE Tidewater members have been tremendous, providing volunteers throughout the event. And the students really get a lot of hands-on learning out of this. And so they are tasked with building an electric-powered boat and then racing against other collegiate boats for 2 miles if they're uncrewed and 5 miles if they're crewed. And it allows students to really do some design, which has always been a standard of the senior design process. And about 60% of our teams are senior design. But they also really have to fabricate. The winners, as much as it sounds like it's a race, it's a reliability competition and, hardening and testing and getting through those steps of engineering that we do all the time in the field, but may not happen as often in the classroom. And so we think we're able to develop students for the workforce that are even more ready to make an impact on day one. And we work to upskill them as well. Through the fall, we've had a series of pep talks, which is what we call our webinars. So there's a learning aspect to this. And then we also visit the teams on campus every year, and that allows us to connect with them more, better understand each student's career trajectory, support them in finding internships and career entry level jobs. And even, now we've been doing this long enough, as students need to make a change a couple years down the road, we're still here to support those career moves and provide connections to our naval engineering community. So PEP workforce development really is more workforce development than race. The race is the sizzle. It's the fun that gets everyone attracted to what we're doing. But the backbone and really the heart of what's been making this grow is understanding our students, helping them grow as engineers, and then helping them find careers that are meaningful and also support our industry.
ASNE manages the program. It's funded by ONR, the Office of Naval Research, and supported by the Hampton Roads Workforce Council. So tell me, how do these organizations collaborate to support and grow this PEP community?
Yeah, everything starts with O&R, and they're tremendous. So, as we're in the middle of a competition, we're already thinking about the next competition. And the problem that we address every year is really focused on the Navy's problem. So a few years ago, it looked like some of the boats might be getting a little bit smaller because light is fast. And the Navy knew that, the problem set that we're solving is not for RC boats. The problem that we're solving for is for authentic water conditions. And so now we carry a payload and have those requirements across the uncrewed classes. So the ONR really sits down and thinks through what is the problem that PEP's going to solve every year, and then helps collaborate on making the rubrics that are designed for each of those divisions. And actually, are the judges, for the most part, we'd have some volunteer judges and greatly appreciate that. but ONR judges a lot of the papers and videos and provides that authentic feedback of what it's like to work, both as someone within NAVC or perhaps as a contractor to NAVC. And as our program officer often mentions, documentation matters, and so they kind of set the bar and hold the bar. ASNE does a lot of the work to make the nuts and bolts come together. We cut the checks, we get the information from all the universities on how to collaborate together. We actually go to each of the campuses to meet with the students and thank them and to sometimes drop off donated materials. We seek a lot of sponsorships. All the sponsorships go towards improving the race day or the overall competition. We were excited that Bath Ironworks leaned in as an ASNE member, corporate supporter. They also bought a sound system and are a bronze level supporter of PEP 26. And so this sound system will allow us to, let people know when they're supposed to race. And I know it sounds foundational and basic that we should have that material. We don't have it on site yet, but we've been growing so quickly that we really need support from the community to help manage this as it's grown from 8 boats in the water to, we'll have 57 boats in the water this year. And the Hampton Roads Workforce Council is tremendous. Last year, they helped us out with, sponsoring some of the internships. They've been hosting job talks from local companies. And a lot of our students know the big companies, right? It's the small and medium-sized companies that are harder to identify and to understand if that's the kind of company you want to work with. And HRWC has been great at hosting these job talks. These videos have been recorded so that students can look at them at their convenience because college campus is a busy place and our students aren't necessarily used to watching linear TV anymore. So having those recordings have been great. And this year they'll be sponsoring some of the events during the Wednesday, especially of the competition, the most busy day. We will have a job. Wouldn't say fair, but there will be recruiters on site that will be able to be seated at tables, but also walking the parking lots. Again, we will, as ASNE, will collect resumes from students. We'll put those on each of the team's websites that we manage at navalsengineers.org so that they can celebrate their work in this program better. And we are working together with HRWC to have like an impactful reception and also to leverage all the things that the city of Portsmouth is leaning in to help us out with. More than ever, moving away from the Virginia Beach location was great, but it's kind of tucked away in a quiet corner of Virginia Beach, whereas City Park is kind of in the center of a lot of energy. We expect to have I would say dozens right now, but it might end up being hundreds of school students in bleachers watching the racing. And that's exciting to start making this program grow as a recruiting tool for our industry. So we're working with Portsmouth City Schools to have middle and high school students on site that will be able to check out what's going on in the parking lot, seeing that excitement, but also watching what's happening on the water and understanding that all this stuff that surrounds them every day is stuff that they can actually do. Uh, so our partners are what are empowering our growth, and we're really excited to work with these partners and to add any new ones that are out there.
Indeed, that all sounds very exciting. You said that PEP started in 2018. How many competitions have there been to date, and what milestones have been accomplished so far through the competition?
Sure. So in PEP 2018, we were doing it during a MAC, and we had two boats from industry, but no boats from college. And it was an exciting way to kick off the program on such a short time frame where we had imagined and executed the idea in a matter of 3 months. And as we spun up the college competition, what was kind of interesting is the pandemic really threw a huge curveball into what we were doing, but it kind of showed what became one of our operating mantras. We were extremely flexible and worked with universities in ways that would sound not would sound challenging, but actually made this possible to keep it moving forward. For example, we clawed back money from Princeton and they were happy for us to do that so that we could actually buy stuff for the PEP club that was starting at Princeton and send it to students' houses so that they could build subsystems in their local communities and then bring them together on race day at the Coast Guard Yard to put them together. And that kind of flexibility and working with the universities and figuring out what's the best way to make this the most impactful thing at each of the locations is something that we do today. And so, even though we weren't able to race in 2020, it kind of set the stage for us to be, an organization that can really make this an impactful program. So our first one was at PEP during MAC 2021. We had two uncrewed boats and six boats that were crewed in the water. We had a thunderstorm during the race and still knocked it out in 90 minutes, which now we're about up to 3 days of competition. And it was tremendous to get everyone together. The picture is fun. It looks like a class photo more than, the photos that we're taking now from aerial drones to get the hundreds of people into the shots. At this point, we just did our annual review for ONR. We've had 1,182 different students come through the program, and they are taking dozens of jobs across the federal government. They're taking over 100 jobs across what we call the Naval Research Enterprise, companies that support the U.S. Navy and do different kinds of activities, both for manufacturing and research of components that the Navy needs. And we've grown to 47 universities. That number can fluctuate on the day. We've already recruited half of the schools that can join us next year in the fall, which is exciting that we're out there and connecting with new schools at a higher rate. It's getting to be where our next milestone is probably hosting another PEP competition, either on the West Coast or the Gulf Coast. And I've already been working with the ASNE Central Gulf Coast members to help identify places and times and organizations that can come together and make that next milestone a reality. And it's really been something that has been tremendous to watch grow. Last year we had about 325 students on site at PEP 25. We had 490 authors listed on the student papers, and we're definitely north of that this year. We expect to have 350 students on site. We know it's hard to travel, and especially as we start recruiting more and more schools from the Midwest, a core part of the team can travel, but to build the boat that they want and to pay for the travel, the money, that pie can only get split up so much. So we know that we'll have over 500 students working on these boats this year, but that will translate into 350 people on site. We're up to six divisions. Last year we had three, and we started with two. And we expect to be around 60 universities next year. So the milestones have been being checked off at a rapid pace. We're excited about the growth. We think that we're managing well to keep the focus on the workforce development aspects, even with the growing number of students. And this is providing even more interns to industry. And it's really exciting to see that the workforce is being developed both through our seniors, but also through our freshmen, sophomores, and juniors that are ready to make impactful contributions to industry.
What are the basic rules and rubrics for PEP 26?
So with six divisions, there's a lot of weeds, but I think one of the central ethos is that is worth mentioning in a format like this is we have 2 pages of rules. And so we really rely on our visits to the teams to make sure that those designs are well thought out and the fabrication is going well so that we don't have to pull a boat from the competition. A lot of the other collegiate competitions, it's more here are 90 pages of ways to build the thing that we're doing, and you try to make it the most efficient thing possible. Our basic rule is here's a clean sheet. You got to go 2 miles uncrewed. How are you going to get there the quickest? How you're going to go 5 miles in a boat that you're driving? How are you going to get there the quickest on battery power? To make sure it's safe, we've capped at touch safe technology, which is 48 volts, because some of the systems can be a few volts higher using some of the lithium technologies that are out there. It's a hard cap at 55.5 volts. Um, and the uncrewed boats have to carry a 60-pound payload in the open competition, and I'll explain a little bit about that later. And then when they're autonomous or over the horizon, long distance, like 1 mile away, remote control, or the budget warriors, they have to carry 30 pounds of payload. So that way they are a craft that have some merit. And so when we talk about, does it have to be a certain length or a certain width or have what, it does have to be zero buoyancy. So they have to have flotation foam inside their craft. It really is a design competition where the imagination of the student is really pushed. And as far as advice that we give in October, there are so many opportunities that we just tell them to get out of that phase as quickly as possible, to do their analysis of alternatives, to look at the rules, and then find a design that they can execute. Because the imagination stage isn't necessarily the winning part. It's much more the fabrication stage.
You mentioned there's six different categories. They are autonomous, over the horizon, budget warriors, uncrewed open, crewed planing, and crewed displacement. Many listeners may guess what these categories include based on the title, but would you describe each one of them for the
Sure
Talk a
thing.
Little, Learn a Lot audience? Yeah.
Yeah, we're really excited about these new divisions and the continued history of our previous competitions. The autonomous division is new and exciting. I think that we've had 18 universities sign up for this. And so they will be racing for 2 miles. Our course are basic. They are two buoys that either a half mile apart or a quarter mile apart. Uh, the quarter mile apart course will be tucked away in a cove where there isn't as much exposure to the elements, but there's also not as much depth. So it's for a certain type of craft. And in the autonomy division, we know that we're going to see a lot of craft that focus more on the software problem and the integration of the systems problem more than making the largest hull possible. So for this first year for autonomy, they have lots of different levels of autonomy that they can use to be successful. We will give them the GPS locations of the two buoys. The two buoys will have a certain color predominantly across them. There will also be April tags on those two buoys. And they will only be one boat on the course at a time. So if you're familiar with autonomy, there's different levels, and that goes from like the most basic levels, but it allows for students to design at the most basic levels, but they can go well above and beyond. And the rubric is designed to reward students and teams that explore more robust autonomy applications. So if they are able to add LiDAR and look at object avoidance, there's additional points. If they're able to consider different kinds of video feeds and software that can um, manage that data input to influence how the software executes the driving. There's extra points for that. So the way that we're running autonomous this year is that all levels of autonomy are accepted and rewarded, especially on the paper side. But on the race day, whatever level you're bringing, it all kind of zeroes out, and whoever gets through the course fastest gets those most points. And so we're kind of, still with the heart of, can you do the hull, the mechanical? Can you make this go as fast as possible? But also starting to explore this crucial technology, which is driving a lot of the small and medium-sized boat design today for the Navy, and giving a lot of students to industry that have been working this problem set on the water with craft that are moving, understanding the things like the water reflects light in a way that kind of grays out a lot of the colors that could be used in a more traditional autonomous application. So there's some unique problems that the teams quickly, run into. But it's been exciting to see them. We're, recording this in early January, so our teams have been in parking garages. They're all across the country, so it's quite cold in most of these places, and they're testing their autonomy and charting these paths and making sure that the sensors can communicate with the central nervous system of the craft, and then can actually make some choices on how to execute the driving path, or what will be the boating path when it gets on the water. So the autonomy division overall is allowing for a wide range of autonomy. Kind of circling back something that we already talked about. This division will surely evolve over time and may even split. But what we're allowing for this year is a competition where many universities are making autonomous boats for racing conditions to go fast. And as we talk with them during the competition and talk to the Austin Naval Research about how they felt the race went and how the problem set might be evolving in the the real world, quote unquote. This division may change a little bit over time. The Over the Horizons is another new exciting competition. And so, as we've seen in a lot of news reports around the world, the ability to control craft over long distances is a key aspect of what navies are getting into and even what industry is getting into. And so, with this competition, the driver will stay on land. They will be operating in the main course in the channel. They won't really be able to see where they need to turn around. So there's no rules about how they're going to do this communication and data transfer, but there's probably some mix of GPS being sent back to the operator, probably a video camera on the bow that's being transmitted back, using some different transmission technologies than what we've been using traditionally in the uncrewed, where some teams have started exploring cellular connections. Thanks to the city of Portsmouth being a good technology bed. Um, but it's a smaller division. I think that we have three schools signed up for it right now. It's a hard problem set, giving tools that can fit within a thousands of dollar budgets, not a tens of thousands of dollar budget. But that kind of what makes it really exciting. Last year ONR gave a special award to the University of Kentucky because they made so much from scratch. They were making their remote controllers, from the foundational components and making wooden boxes to hold those components. Like they made those things from scratch. And I think that's what it's requiring these students to do in Over the Horizon. That the technologies are pretty expensive. They're trying to grab what they can to just get around the course, which is, understanding your minimal viable prototype. That's a key aspect of what we get into. So they work hard to figure out how to do this communication, both sending the signal on how to drive and then receiving data back from the craft, and then having the power in that secondary system to be able to really manage those control systems, and also the data gathering that has to happen on the craft, while also having a primary system that's able to do the traditional racing around a 2 mile course as an uncrewed boat. The Budget Warriors is also new, and that's come out of some of our teams that have been extremely thrifty and wanted to get rewarded for their thrift. And what engineer does not want to reward someone who's able to do more with less? And so we had a meeting to kick off this division in October. The teams all agreed that, almost everything on the boat from stern to bow would be included in the $1,500 budget. And so there's a worksheet that we developed together to document all the expenses that are shown on the boat. The communication system, the remote control, is outside of that requirement of $1,500, and the boats will operate as they do in the uncrewed open. So, thanks to our friends at the Combat Craft Division, we have really experienced people from the Navy that drive around these collegiate operators, which I think is one of the real highlights of the PEP competition, is getting collegiate students on Navy boats to understand the professionalism, but also the quality that's expected across every boat that's operated by the Navy. And so the budget warriors will go out there and they'll follow around their boat at whatever distance that they agree is the right, distance. And it will be an interesting one. We've had three schools sign up for this. There might be some schools that back into this as a way to get more competitive for some trophies. Um, but it really rewards teams that are able to fabricate their own hull. Obviously, the hull and the batteries are kind of the two big price drivers for the PEP competition designs. And so if you can make your own hull from scratch, it really changes the budget equation. And so some teams are, going plywood and fiberglass. Our friends at the University of Rhode Island continue to lean into doing some popsicle stick uh, basic fabrication, covering it with epoxy and fiberglass. And last year, that boat finished third in speed in doing 2 miles in 7 minutes and 12 seconds, I think. And so these kind of designs are pretty exciting where we see that students are able to get into those fabrication steps, understand what's needed and what's nice, and then really execute a really nice design. Um, Last year, the Northeastern team also was laying up fiberglass, but they were doing it in 15-degree Boston temperatures, about this time of the school of the year. And so they were using epoxy just to heat the fabrication laydown that the fiberglass laydown that they were doing. So these kind of like let's get into the weeds of each part to make it as efficient from a dollar's perspective. Ends up spending a lot of time, but I think that's a win for us, to have more students that understand and more entry level, engineers that understand the ins and outs of the different processes that are go can go into making boats. It only strengthens us as an industry. The uncrewed open is something that we've been doing since the very beginning when we had two uncrewed boats. And, the Navy, again, shakes around those operators. They have to carry 60 pounds of ballast. So these boats are getting bigger and more powerful in a way that is pretty exciting for those of us who know how these could be applied down the road. And we have a good amount. I think it's our most popular division this year. It's about 18 universities have signed up for uncrewed open as well. The crewed divisions are divided into two groups, planing and displacement. And as naval engineers know, that's more of a continuum than a hard classification, especially if you're racing boats that may not get over 10 knots all the time. It can be more of a, what do you think this boat is? But we do have a good number of planing halls that are designed from the get-go to be planing, and actually, it's the more popular crewed division this year. I think that we have 11 schools signed up for this. We have tremendous partners at the American Powerboat Association. They support another competition, which is wonderful, called Solar Splash. And about six, seven of our teams are also competing in Solar Splash. For what it's worth, about four of our clubs are also competing in four are competing in Robo Nation competitions like Robo Boat, and another four are competing in competitions like Mate. So I think what that speaks to, I can speak to this a little bit more later. Some of these boats are being co-designed for multiple applications, and that kind of speaks to what we've been talking about at ASNE for a long time with modular designs, with a design foundation that is applicable to a lot of different problem sets. But getting back to the planing division, these boats still have to have 55.5 volts capped. The winning team last year from Stevens Institute had a carbon fiber hull that was 16 feet long, I think 16 and a half feet long, and weighed 54 pounds. So they still need to lean in and find ways to make these boats, tremendously effective, giving some of the few limitations that we do put on them. There are a lot of safety features that are required for kill switches and stops and emergency stops and things of that nature to make these boats safe to operate. But they go 5 miles, and last year the winning team did the 5 miles in 20 minutes. And with the battery regulation at 55 volts, it really does like focus on this kind of efficient operation rather than a true race boat. Going back to our friends at the American Powerboat Association, the clubs also have opportunities to race at powerboat events and have an open invitation from the APBA to come and do a demo at one of their 130 races a year. And so if and when we have teams that are looking to set new records for electric speed on the water, we have ways that they can do that. What's interesting is as we record this in January 2026, the Princeton team still has the fastest boat that's battery powered for the 1 kilo race. And so they went down the lake in North Carolina for 1 kilometer at 112 miles an hour, give or take, and went back up at 116 miles an hour. And so that ended up being an average recognized time of 114.20 miles per hour. And there are some teams that have taken shots at that, both on the collegiate and the professional ranks. No one has beat that time from October 2023. The there are many teams working towards this again, including the Princeton team. And so the planning competition that we host at PEP has a good rule set that keeps people safe on the water and keeps people designing these solutions. In addition, these teams are looking at setting world records. And that's exciting to see the challenges they put in front of themselves. The only other world record that is held by a PEP team that I know about is Washington College actually set the record for longest run on one charge. They ran their boat continuously for the Guinness World Records judges. They put in the water Friday at 3 p.m. and they ran out of battery Monday at 8 a.m., running it through the night twice. And so I think it was 69 hours and 167 miles. Someone can check that on the Washington College site. But that's a Guinness World Record that they decided to set that wasn't really part of the PEP rules, but shows about their innovation and their heart, that they would get out there during Labor Day weekend and knock that out. And our last division is crude displacement. And so last year, these were all sailboat frames. That doesn't have to be the only design, but it gives a good picture in people's mind about how they're executing this. It allows for teams that may want to have more robust designs, but maybe not be true racing boats, to have a place to race with other boats that are like-minded. And like I said, some of the boats, if they're John boats that are only able to hit certain speeds, they may end up falling into this category as well. Right now, we have 4 universities signed up for this, and it's an exciting race. What was interesting last year in Virginia Beach, we had like 20 and 20-mile-an-hour winds and up to 30-mile-an-hour gusts, and it was really challenging. But this was the division that could actually handle it. These boats were robust designs and were out there in Back Bay showing off that they could really knock this stuff out even under less than ideal conditions. And as we know, there's a lot of catamaran designs in the uncrewed space, so it wasn't a surprise that these boats were still very effective. But those are our 6 divisions this year, and they offer a lot of depth to problem solving, which is our whole point of getting these students out there and solving real world problems.
You mentioned Washington, you mentioned Stevens, you mentioned Princeton, you mentioned Rhode Island. It is a large field, but I'm curious, who are some of the other contestants this year?
Yeah, it's a tremendous field. We go out west as far as Madison College, which is a 2-year school that took home a second place trophy 2 years ago. University of Iowa, we restarted a club, and the leadership there is tremendous. They have 17 people in a naval engineering club, and if anyone's been out there, there's tremendous testing facilities at University of Iowa. One of the stronger contestants at Florida Atlantic actually took an internship in Iowa one summer and now works at Panama City with NAVC. So it's great to be able to, give more energy and empower universities that may not be seen as traditional naval powerhouses to get to show off and rebuild some of that energy. The pandemic, it was and provided a lot of speed bumps for people, and PEP is one of those things that can refire up some things that need to get going. Arkansas Tech is has 2 teams this year. Last year they took home 2 second place trophies. It's about an hour northwest of Little Rock, Arkansas, and these students are very technology proficient. They're excellent fabricators. Last year, someone pulled up in front of they were looking around on Facebook, they were reaching out to the community trying to find halls. Someone pulled up and said, "Hey, if you can fix one of these jet skis, I'll give you the other one." And that's how the uncrewed team got their haul. They spent I think 6 weeks fixing up jet ski to give back to the gentleman who brought 2 over. And they had a beautiful green and yellow uncrewed jet ski out there, taking home a second place trophy last year. And then Texas A&M, which has been, a traditional naval engineering powerhouse for decades and decades. They have a club. The workspace is tremendous. They design beautiful wooden boats, fabricate them with gorgeous paint schemes, and have a good plan this year to make sure that they put high-powered electric motors in there. We have added Mass Maritime. University of Michigan's back into our competition. Princeton's club is up to about 70 students. So some of the, traditional naval engineering, Virginia Tech has a large club as well. One of many clubs and augmented by the SNE ASNE club, which has made it to a number of SNE and ASNE events this year. So we are in the heartbed, the kind of the heartland of where naval engineering's been. Um, we are have talked with the maritime academies across the country, and as it makes sense for them to join us, they will be coming back in. We spoke with them again at Workboat, and there's some excitement for a few more of them to join us next year. But I think where PEP ends up being having some more special additions is we're going into the community and bringing people to us. So Auburn and Alabama and the University of Georgia and UCF, those are great schools surrounded by naval work, but maybe not traditionally tied to naval engineering. University of Tennessee, University of Kentucky, University of Dayton, University of Illinois, University of Toledo, through the heartland where there's a lot of fabrication that's happening that goes back to ships that we need across the country. We have teams building boats and working with, waterproofing and understanding the heat buildups and working on these electronic systems. And then we have just dozens and dozens of schools up and down the East Coast, uh, going down to FAU and UCF and up to Northeastern and Quinnipiac is new. Central Connecticut State's new. UConn has had a tremendous team and has seen two senior design teams and a club working. I mentioned earlier about 60% of our teams is senior design. That means about 40% are clubs. We have new clubs at the University of Tennessee, the University at Buffalo. UConn is pretty close to going to become an ASNE chapter. And these just shows a lot of growth that our industry is able to recruit from a greater variety of universities and locations. But I think, it's worth acknowledging the limitation. We don't have as much around the Central Gulf Coast as we could, and we don't have anything on the West Coast really. And we've talked with some students that are really interested at UC San Diego. We've had some interest from Cal Maritime. The idea of shipping the boat over and flying to race is something that we all acknowledge is the best of a bad solution. But no one said yes to that competition yet, and that's why I think at some point, whether it be Seattle or San Diego, we've got to get over to the West Coast so that we can start to have this impact, but on the West Coast. And as we see so much of the autonomous testing happening in the San Diego area, and other companies like ARC make huge impacts. And a couple of our students have already ended up at ARC, but having students building boats in the West Coast is something that we really need to get to. So the number of contestants we have is very exciting. Just within a stone's throw of the ASNE office, we've got a new club at GW. There's now a UVA autonomous club, autonomous watercraft, and our team at Howard continues to move into their fourth year of competition, I think. So there's more contestants that I can mention or list in this, but we're excited by the breadth of competition and know that they all kind of come into the race on April 14th on equal footing to see who can go fastest.
Are there any designs or approaches that some of the teams are employing this year that we should make sure to watch?
I think on the autonomy side, that's the place where most people are going to be interested and it'll be exciting to see. Our teams are already out there asking for LiDAR to raise more additional money. We had Longwood University's a first year team. They came over to the ASNE Tidewater reception, presented their boat, which they've already built the hull, and this was, mid-December. And they're, what can we do to help? Well, we need LiDAR, and LiDAR is really expensive. And so the integration of the systems on the autonomy side is really exciting. I think the for people who know autonomy, getting into the weeds of how they design the software, particularly around like loss of signal, and how to adjust with testing in one environment and racing in another environment, those kind of things that kind of in the weeds of how do we solve this autonomy problem, and showing how robust of engineers that they are ready to join companies that are getting these contracts to build autonomous systems for the Navy. That we've got 18 different teams that have solved this in different ways, went to a competition to see dozens of other solutions, and really thought about this problem set before they even started working with you. Um, that kind of design approach is really exciting. On the going fast part, I think we're getting more mature where students, these end up really being 2-year builds. And so I think a lot of the teams were able to get battery packs of merit last year, and now they're trying to get the most efficiency out of them. And so again, going back to the industry's perspective, how they're able to maximize whether that's stuff that's happening around the motor, perhaps a gearbox or propeller design. And we have some pretty exciting propeller designs coming that I won't spoil any of the team's own excitement, but they are looking at every facet of propeller design to get the most power into the water in an efficient way. It's pretty exciting to be at a school like Wake Forest and hear about the angle of attack for their how their motors being situated in the water for when they get up on plane. Um, and there are some designs that are taking some big swings. But I think last year we saw with 4 teams that shot for hydrofoils. That takes a lot of practice and needs to be modularized so that you still have a boat that can be racing well. And there are some teams still looking at hydrofoils, but we'll see what that looks like, when they get into the water for qualifying. Um, so I think this year we have like a mix of designs that we're excited about. Some that are truly new, especially in that autonomous space, that over the horizon competition. And then some that really focus on what engineers do best, which is like iterative improvements of designs, of slowly but surely making things more efficient, more effective.
Mike, it's important to emphasize that this event connects the students then to internships and employment. Can you discuss a little bit more on this aspect of the program?
Yeah, and I'll start and end this answer with the same thing of if you are looking for interns or entry level career um engineers, email me education@navalengineers.org. We have 500 plus students that are ready to make a big impact for your organization. And so every week, every Friday morning, we post new internships and new job opportunities that are out there. There are I did this on December 26th. There were dozens of new jobs that these students were ready to go make an impact for, posted on Christmas. And obviously, maybe someone was, getting them into the system on the Friday before they took a winter break, and they just got posted on Christmas, but they were up there on Christmas on buildsubs.com. So the workforce development component of this is tremendous. When I speak with the students on an individual basis, engineers love solving problems, may not always be the best communicators of what they do, but we talk about what parts of the design and build and test and fabrication that they should be talking about in job interviews. The hands-on experience that they get is really puts them in a different category than other students that they're going for these positions with. But sometimes it's hard to see that from the outside because you live that experience. You don't necessarily see that from a recruiter's perspective. But it gives me the joy of saying, as I leave, that unfortunately, the worst day that you have building this boat is going to be your best job interview answer. And so when you're walking home at 1 in the morning and you're pretty frustrated, but you think you might have that solution for the next day and you work through the problem, you find that solution. That's the kind of thing that recruiters want to hear. Um, so we've had some events through the fall. We had 5 teams at Homecoming 250. Princeton brought a boat down. Stevens had their boat in the Innovation Pavilion for the entire 3 days. Delaware let me bring up their boat and they stayed and presented their boat for a couple of days. Rutgers was walking around and talking with people, and there's recruiters there. And so they were able to directly, speak with recruiters that were at the Homecoming 250 for the Navy, to get in line for those positions that they were talking about in October. We have strong relationships and building them with different shipyards. I think that as we build up a number of boats that are ready to be tested in the fall, we'll be on more locations to do some testing, and that will give recruiters better access to these students. Um, the job side, we will, like I mentioned, at the very beginning, the Hampton Roads Workforce Council is talking with recruiters and making sure that they can get on site for PEP. And last year, GE Vernova had four different people walking the parking lot to find talent for their group. Uh, People from Dam Neck and other aspects of NAVC and the U.S. Navy have also been able to walk the parking lot and talk with students. We're starting that phase literally this week where we start gathering resumes. And so one aspect of what ASNE does with PEP is we make a website for every team. And so navalengineers.org/Alabama shows what the University of Alabama does. The University of or navalengineers.org/Auburn shows what Auburn does. Navalengineers.org/Arkansas Tech, and so on. At the top of those pages, we'll put students' resumes that are still looking for careers and still looking for internships. And that way, on race day, there will be a QR code that's in front of all their boats. You can click that QR code, go watch the video of their presentation about why they built the boat the way they did. You can look at their white paper, but you can also get access to these resumes. In addition, I'll have a master file that I can send to recruiters and directly connect with people like Bath Ironworks Careers is very interested in hiring a number of people, both out of PEP and their other, workforce development channels. But there's a lot of opportunity out there in our industry. So we gather all the resumes and put them into two files, one for people that are graduating and looking for careers, and one for students that will be returning to school eventually and looking for internships, and get those into the hands of recruiters throughout the next few weeks and months. And so, again, if you are someone that's looking to build out your talent pipeline, please email me, education at navalengineers.org, and we'll be sure to get these resumes over to you.
And what advice are you giving the teams at this point when they're, say 3 months out from the competition?
Yeah, the advice it really evolves over the year. When we're kicking off things in August and September, we encourage students to look at a variety of designs and quickly come to one that they are going to focus on. In October, we start saying, and through November, they've got to have one of the subsystems down. And so this really is a systems engineering project more than a naval engineering project. So they've got to have the hull figured out by the time they leave on winter break, or the propulsion system working on a bench top before they leave on winter break. If they can get one of those two nailed down, it reduces the degrees of freedom for the chaos that they'll find in these next few months. And so when we move into January, the advice really is you've got to get the prototype into a testing phase where you can get it wet. And some of our teams have to go to pretty extraordinary lengths to get their boats into pools, especially if rivers are frozen over. Our friends in the South don't have as much problem with that. They're throwing their boats into ponds and lakes around their campuses. Um, but they've got to get to testing as quickly as possible. And, you know, the initial question that we're asking today is, do you have everything that you need to build? This is a little bit of an echo of starting during the pandemic, but supply chain is a big deal for this work, and we need everything in the lab so that we're not waiting, our Gantt chart's not being exploded by supply chain issues. And so if students don't have everything on site right now, they need to get it, yesterday, and then get into a testing phase by February 1 at the latest. Because the race is April 14th, and really they can't make big swings on the boat. My advice is after the first week of March that it becomes a baby that you need to protect. It can't be an engineering project where you're going to take huge swings. Through the testing phase, they've really got to protect a couple of components that have known weaknesses, like the speed controllers blow out pretty easily. Surrounding them with fuses is critical. And that allows everyone to get to the race with a boat that works.
And at some point, in March, our advice will start to become, hey, you've gotta got the boat that you've got. You can make some improvements, but you've got to learn how to just operate what you have. If you've got a heat issue, maybe you can put some heat sinks in, but more often than not, you just got to learn about what percentage of, fish of operation capacity you're really going to run this at. And that has really helped out. We had to have a conversation, us at ONR and everyone involved in the program after PEP 22 because about half the boats didn't make it to the end. And so it was great. That was one of our big step ups in growth. I think we moved up to like 25 or 26 universities at that point. But what we added in was a qualifying. And so knowing that your boat had to go out and turn around and come back just 200 meters before being, put into a racing heat, it snapped everything into a higher quality build. And maybe it was just time also leaning into that. But I think the next year we had 42 boats in the water, only five didn't get to the end. Um, and so, this is an endurance competition more than a speed competition. So building a craft that's reliable and has been tested and operates in a way that it'll operate, that's the key end goal. And the speed will come through that. So our advice really kind of changes over the years to get to that final goal of having a reliable craft where you've operated enough to know how it'll work, but also haven't beaten it up recently enough to know that everything's in a good state.
For companies that might be interested in participating in PEP 26, is there still time to connect, still time to sponsor?
Yeah, I mean, this is our biggest need right now, and we really want to connect more with industry. And we're here to be an equal partner. We're going to gather these resumes, we're going to get them connected to you. We're happy to do job talks. We have a very active Discord with over 500 people who are talking about boats at all times. We have a channel in there to put career and internship websites, and so we can get people connected to companies. But we also are growing so quickly that we have things that, our Austin Naval Research support is tremendous. 70% of that money goes straight to the teams. The bulk of the remaining of that goes to hosting the event where we have 300 plus students that are, hungry college students that need to be kept safe. So what we need is a lot of support from industry to give us the kind of tools that are necessary to make an event like that that's safe. That includes some stuff like uh, more buoys on the water to add direction. So we have like an on-water support category. The food could be sponsored for each day. We have drone photography that could be directly sponsored. We do that over 2 days, and we actually live stream that through a um,
Is it like Twitch or something?
we do it through YouTube, but Starlink is what I was trying to pull. Thank you for that help, sir. So we have Starlink set up on site so that we can live stream high quality videos out to the public. And we had some mothers embarrassing some children in the comment section, which is kind of a goal for me. I like that. Um, and overall, we have title sponsorships that can be put on the entire event or on certain days. And what those dollars go to is paying for security guards so that we can keep the boat safe overnight. Helping to say thank you to the EMT services that will be on site every day. Providing a better experience to the high school students that will come and watch this race in person and hopefully get inspired to stay within our industry. So all the money that could be sponsored definitely goes to supporting an event that makes impact both on these colleges, but on the industry as a whole. And we really do ask and hope that companies see a real benefit that we're not asking just for you to be generous, but we know that it's out of your generosity. But we hope to be partners that really help you grow as well and offer a lot of value in these kind of sponsorships that we're trying to promote. And companies like Bath Iron Works see the value. And so we encourage other groups to come in and join us. And we're willing to, tailor packages to make it as impactful for you as an investment as possible. And we will only continue to grow both in number, but in locations. And as we can grow together to make things, you know, be as exciting as possible for your company. We're excited to discuss that. We already have a lot of pep boats that are showing up at places just to, bring some more excitement and some more energy and some more conversations with the general public. And, we're excited to share that more with companies and connect better with your hiring staff to make sure that we're sending our students into your careers.
Mike, is there anything else that you would like to share with the Talk a Little, Learn a Lot audience?
Yeah, I think the big thing is it's kind of interesting running a competition where you're at 47 universities, but you're not necessarily there all the time. So we live online, and these students live online more than we do as professionals, right? So when we post things on PEP has a LinkedIn page. It's just PEP Workforce Development. You can find it on LinkedIn if you just search for that, or it's you can go through the ASNE LinkedIn page to find it. We celebrate what they do most Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And so if we want these students to join our industry, we want to show that they're a valued member of our industry. So if you can like and repost or comment, say way to go. Last week, which was, between Christmas and New Year's, Norfolk State is at an ASNE member's house building a catamaran hull. And we're posting about that. We're showing the videos of them at Home Depot and them with Sanders and the final design. And it'd just be great to celebrate and to make these students know that we are excited by them joining us, that we have jobs and real interesting problems to solve in the future. I think in general with careers, people, tend to leave jobs because of managing and culture, but with engineers, I think they kind of get attracted to companies by problems and energy. And so the right kinds of problems and the energy to go solve them and prizing the solution, not glorifying the problem. Those are kind of things that kind of attract our students. And so if we are on LinkedIn or if we can get into the Discord and cheer these students on, I think that it keeps them in our universe. We signed up 272 ASNE members out of PEP this year. And so they are reaching their hand out to shake your hand. We desperately need us as an industry to come back and shake these students' hands. If you can come by and see a team, they have design reviews all the time. They're in the labs now fabricating. If you're on the eastern half of the country, we probably have a team within 100 miles of you. And if bring some pens or recruiting flyers or anything like that, all that's welcome to come show these teams that as an industry we care. From our computers, we can look at these teams that we're celebrating online. And during the fall, I think that we posted 27 different universities and updates on their designs and builds and tests. And so you can go back through today, the PEP LinkedIn page, and scroll through previous posts and just give thumbs ups or comments to previous designs. And we will continue this drumbeat through the competition and well past once we get new videos from the drone photography. And that kind of connection is really at the heart. I think people ask why we grow so quickly. Part of it is that we give money rather than charge people to race, and that puts some stress on our budget. But that's why we reach out to industry for sponsorship. But the other thing is that we show heart, that we show that we're in it with the students. That last week I got pictures of boat builds at 7:30 in the morning texted to me, and it's great to know that they feel that they can do that. That's the point. And the more of us that show that we're willing to reach out and pull these students up with us, the more that we're going to get high quality talent into our industry. To be transparent, a lot of students are going to SpaceX and some other companies that, pay a little bit more and show a little bit more outreach in this regard. And we've got to do as well as them and better. That these are our people. These are people that have been solving naval problems for a long time. In their world, maybe short time in our world, but they're coming with experience that's unique and they're ready to make a better impact on day one. We just need to be the ones to say, keep going. I like what you're doing here. Here's my advice. You can take it or leave it, but let's keep this conversation going for a lot of years because you're going to be a valued member of our industry. So that's the main thing that I want to get across is that we have a huge community right now, but we need your support. And that can just be a lot of attaboys, go get them, good teamwork, that kind of stuff. But for us to continue growing in this way, it's going to take a lot more hands and a lot more industry involvement. And I'm excited that we were able to get together today to speak about this, to raise awareness of all the exciting things that have been happening to date, kind of some of the steps where we think we'll be going in the future, and really invite the community to come in, engage with the teams, engage with the event, engage with the program in a way that can help us, hit these goals and make sure that the Navy is as strong as it can be going forward. We've been trying on a new motto of racing to the Navy's future. And I really think that's what PEP is all about, that we have this exciting race, but we're focused on the future and developing the individual future of each one of these students. And I just invite everyone that's listening to reach out either through the website, navalengineers.org/PEP26, or to emailing us, education@navalengineers.org, to be part of this program because it's only going to continue to grow, and we really could use your support to make it grow.
Indeed. And so thank you, Dr. Michael Briscoe, ASNE's educator in residence, for taking time to discuss PEP Workforce Development 2026. I know that we will have you on the show again on Talk a Little, Learn a Lot, the podcast of the American Society of Naval Engineers.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate the time today.